My name is Ken Sear. I am the technical director for the Visual and Performing Arts Theater Division. And this is Imagining Impossibilities, which is an exploration of museum displays that are giving our students and the public and our community an opportunity to kind of see the variety of ways that the entertainment industry enacts the work that we do. Like, there's so many options and so many things you can do inside the entertainment industry. It's not just theater, it's not just film, but museums and trade shows, and just all of the various ways that you can actually be a part of the technical side or the artistic side of the entertainment industry. This is the exploration for us of how that works. So we came up with the name, actually my wife came up with the name, because we were talking about, again, about the possible things you can do and all the things that people think, oh no, that's not my job, that's not what I do. You're like, no, it's not impossible. Like, it's all, so it's imagining the possibilities with the im in parentheses so that you understood that, it's really not impossible. Like, we can do it all, we can make things happen. And so that was kind of the somewhat of a joke and somewhat of an inside thing where we were like, that'll work, that's gonna be fine, we're gonna stick with that. And apparently Night at the Museum was already taken, we weren't allowed to use that, so we decided not to. So when you arrive, the expectation is that it's a free walk. You can go anywhere you want. We've numbered the displays, and there's a sheet to kind of help you understand what they are. But you don't have to follow in any specific order or any path, because they are not linked except that they're part of the show. So as we walk around the room, you'll kind of see how they're not linked and how different they are. The thing that links them for us was the knowledge that we were trying to make sure that outside of our division and departments and inside our departments, we understand that the entertainment field is collaborative. You have to be working together. And sometimes it's really hard to see like who did what or how these two things connect. So when we were discussing the displays we were going to have, we were asking everybody to be very mindful of each display or each concept utilizing or having at minimum two of our fields together. So costumes and lights, or costume and sound, or sound and lights, or scenic, and so that we have the opportunity to show that, in fact, even though we were all part of every display, there could be one or two prevalent or most prevalent fields that took part or that helped, right? So as we walk around, I'm hoping I can highlight that and say that this is a combination of these fields working. So, all right?
Yeah.
So our first display inside the door it's actually a little bit of everybody but scenic. So it's both lights and sound, but it was also for costumes. So there are capes hanging on the wall, and it was just a dress-up stage, because a lot of children's museums, a lot of museums have something where you're trying to engage kids, and we wanted it to be a little bit interactive and something fun to do, and a place that people could take a couple pictures if they wanted to. So it's our selfie stage and our setting the stage and just having fun. So we've got a cape you can throw on over there. We've got a little stage and a backdrop behind it, and then there's this nice panel of buttons that anybody can push any one. And some of the buttons are linked to sound, like music. Some are linked to sound effects, and then some are linked to lighting effects. And so you can kind of bounce through and play and see different things and have fun. There's a mirror so you can see yourself if somebody else is hitting the buttons. It's just an opportunity to play and enjoy. And so again, this utilizes technology and the skill sets of those in lighting, those in costuming, and those in sound really specifically. And the scenic people, we just built a couple of things to set around to make sure that everybody had something good to have behind them, right? So we were the auxiliary group in that. But then as you come around, you just hit buttons, and you go through different effects and different lights. And so there's a variety of different things you can push and test and see and go from there. So this particular piece is something we were working on with the Chassel Historic Museum. They are looking to help people understand how that town developed, and a major component was the sawmill. So they provided us with some maps, and we have a student who programmed our CNC machine and carved the map, and has been working on what this will look like. So this is a prototype of something we're going to help make for permanent installation at the Chassel Museum. So we're hoping it'll be about 4 times this size when it's done. I think we have to go measure again and make sure that's going to fit, but that's the goal, is to make it really large so that we can be really specific about, there's the sawmill and log piles, and like how their request was to make sure that we did like lighting or an effect, an automated effect, so that people could see the path that like the trains took, or where the logs came in on the river and floated across the lake, so that you can really get a sense of how that industry shaped Chassel and shaped part of this area. So this is our vaudeville costume display. We were gifted, or some costumes were donated to the costume shop a number of years ago. They were found in somebody's garage. They were in bad shape, and so my wife, Mary Sear, has worked in some museum conservation, and so she and a grad student from, I believe, social sciences, worked on a plan to conserve these costumes and then to try to find out a little bit more about them, so that we could actually do them some justice and kind of try to preserve them. Once that was done, we had kind of decided we needed a way to display them and put it together. It was part of the impetus for this whole display, was we wanted to do these museum displays and come up with ways that things are interesting. So we built a stage and a little mock setup for them. And so this is kind of biggest components started with costumes and scenic. And then I asked lighting and sound to help us and give us a little extra so that we could focus on a really specific thing and put some sound effects with it so that people can make it more interactive and kind of figure out or explore a little more what the purpose of the costumes was. So that was kind of our hope. I like this display a lot. I think it's actually really fun, and I think it's fairly simple, but it just neat. It makes me happy. And you get to push buttons.
Yeah, you can touch one of them.
So as you touch the button, it goes to that specific costume, and it tells you a little bit about what it is, and there's music to go with, and the lights focused out just on that costume. So it bounce through all 3. And it's just cool. Somebody go get a picture of Ace. Yeah. So this is Fluffernutter. This is a display by our theater design students and Professor Lisa Gordine. So this was kind of an experiential and a touch-sensitive display that was just designed for people to come in and sit down and kind of look up at the lights and feel and be and explore. So it's really cool. And it was worked on by an entire class of students. They put this together in a few days, but they had to work through a design process and why aesthetically they wanted things where they wanted them and how they were going to achieve that particular goal. And their end goal really was to have people come in and sit down and just So this display again is costumes and lighting, and it's about color theory and how the primary colors of light and the primary colors of pigment, actually how they work together and how you have to be sensitive to how they work together. So there is a light gray dress and then a primary color dress that you can interact with the colors of light to see how it affects those colors that you're seeing and what kind of things we expect to see. It's a really important aspect of theater and most entertainment industry because the way that the color of the light interacts with the colors around it affects directly how the audience is going to feel what they see and don't see. So if you put red light on a red dress, you don't see it as well. It still reads as red, but it's kind of washed out, or it's just overly. There's too much, basically. Whereas if you put the wrong color, if you put on a light that has no red in it, then that red will turn red. It will look like another color. So this is an opportunity again for the audience to go and change the colors on the dresses and see how that acts or reacts, and learn a little bit about color mixing and color coding. So, as the example, most people know their primary colors that they learned as a kid, but they may not know that those primary colors of red, blue, yellow in pigment are not the same as the primary colors of light. And so when you play with light, there is no yellow, there's red, green, and blue. And if you want yellow or amber, you have to mix red and green, which doesn't work with pigment. So you get much more yellow light when you mix those two versus just one red. So there's the red, and there's the green tint together, they make it amber. And so then when the blue, you get white light. It actually shows more of its true color. So this is an opportunity for people to kind of explore and see and understand how that color works or how that color theory works. And this was the one from downstairs from Rose. This is again, so this is Lisa Gordillo's nature sculpture class, which I probably have the name wrong, and she'll smack me for not getting it right. But this is a prototype for a larger version of this that will be put out in the forest, and its intent is it's natural materials, so it'll eventually decompose and fall apart, but that you can sit inside it or you can go to the end of it and it will help to gather the sounds of the forest that are in front of you so that you can hear them more clearly and better. So this is a very small version. The real versions will be about twice the size or maybe a little bit more. So it's really cool. And this was one of my first projects here at the college, and it was before we were even hired. I like to tell my story because I think it's neat and it's a good idea about our department. We had been hired, but we weren't on contract yet, and Christopher Plummer and Libby Meyer, who were two of our professors on faculty, contacted me as the new incoming person and said, we're working on this grant proposal. It's kind of this. Do you want to be on it? And I was sure. I don't know. I don't even know you yet. I can't. Sure. How cool is that you're just going to ask me to be a part of something? And so when I got here, we had received the grant and it had been approved, and so we started planning what we were going to do, and it was involving recording soundscapes and taking cues from not only the land but the sounds of the parks around Lake Superior to compose music, to hear what that's like. And so we went out as a team and we went to Isle Royale twice for about a week each, I think, to record sounds and to hike and camp and kind of figure out what we could show people and how we could show it. So then having helped with that part, then part of my job was my necessity was to create a display to help show those things. And so I came up with a couple of designs, and Chris and I talked a little bit, and settled on this, which has a number of names, that it gets called, but this is an immersive sound display. I wanted the audience to have the imagery and the pictures that we've taken to feel like you were looking through a window, which is why the windows are vertical as opposed to horizontal, is to feel like you could be surrounded by the parks and the areas around Cape Town. So there are 4 displays currently, but this is also a laboratory for sound students to be able to look at, come in, figure out programming, like talk about how things work, and have a fully immersive sound experience while they're sitting there and testing. So it's kind of our lab and display. And it's kind of the first thing like this I've ever built, and it was really cool. I still love this piece. I like seeing it out. I like seeing it get used and explored.
Yeah, so you can touch one of them and show us.
I'm of course going to pick the one that has my name on it because it just makes me happy. This is the entire trip out to Isle Royale. So this is the highway next to the historic park, or next to the main historic site in Houghton, and then loading the ship, getting on the ship, and going out. The ship being the Ranger, obviously, which you'll hear very clearly in just a couple seconds.
Bye, Jazz friends.
This display in specific is sound, projections, and lights. And the idea was they wanted an immersive experience. They wanted something that you could go in and it was meditative, that you could have sound and lights and just kind of calming and see what that was like. And then it ends, so they chose a water theme, but it ends kind of in the ocean, and there's fish and a whale, and you can kind of, in the projection world, kind of see how that works. And all of these things are technically, it's harder to do something like this because you have to have really strange angles, and you've got to really work with like your projection to make sure it shows up the way you intend for it to. So a lot of time was spent, especially in the projection end of this particular mess. Sorry, that's not the word I should use. This particular experience. To try to make everything fit and flow and look right. So we should walk through it just while again, if you want to walk through half, we can start at the end, but it's the same. Which is pretty neat. There's some really cool stuff. And then it starts over and there's shoals of fish, and then there's crashing waves, and there's a couple of different options. So it's just been like, this was a fun one to come up and watch take shape, really. This is something we're working on with the Quincy Mine Hoist Association for Quincy Mine. They were one of the things that they're looking for. We're going to work with them, we believe, for 2 projects. One is a soundscape for the shaft house specifically, and then there was this, which was making a model that shows it works to show people how from the hoist drum to the shaft house was connected, and kind of what happened and what daily work was between those buildings, and how they raised and lowered both miners down into the mine and also brought up the material that they were mining. So we have a student working on this. This was entirely built by a student. We've been working on it for a while to kind of consider what it would look like, how we could make a model for them that they can put out in their space and show visitors as they walk by. Because the drum itself, if you haven't been out there, the drum is amazing. It's huge, but it doesn't rotate. So you can't so you can put it in your brain and think about how it works. But it was asked if we could show a little bit more clearly right in front of that there would be this model, that would be really helpful. So that's kind of the reason for this one. And the student and I kind of talked about ways we could do it, and this was the settled on. So this is a prototype at this point in time. This hasn't been, we don't know if this is what it's going to look like when it's actually finished. So we're still waiting to sit down and talk with them and really talk about, like, all right, what do we want to change? How do we make this a bigger thing that's more exactly what they want? This was our first attempt at what can we do to sell that idea and make this work. So, it's a really cool model, actually. So we have a really nice machine downstairs that we purchased a few years ago, a CNC machine. It's a computer numeric control cutter that allows stuff like this to happen relatively easily, but it still takes drafting and programming. And so the student drafted and programmed everything for this, and we ran the pieces, and then he put it together. So it's exciting, and it's really cool to get to see that machine specifically start to get used more and more too, because it's a really beneficial tool. It's one way to do work, so it's really neat to explore and play and have the students play with.